I don't belong here. This is really difficult. There are so many other qualified people. I'm just kind of waiting to figure out what I'm actually doing. Any of you ever had any of those thoughts? Anything ever run through your mind about what you may or may not be able to do or what you're capable of doing? It happens. It happens to a lot of us. In fact, the National Science Foundation found that 80% of people, all of people, 80% of our thoughts are actually negative. Now, if some of you just thought to yourself, no, they're not, well, congratulations, you're in the 80%. They also found that 95% of our thoughts are repetitive. So if 80% of our thoughts are negative and 95% of them are repetitive, can you just imagine that narrative that continues to build in our minds? That the narrative of, well, I don't know why I got this job, and someone is going to figure out that it's not me. I don't know why I'm in this relationship. They're obviously a 10 and I'm obviously a 2.5 at best. I don't know. There's these thoughts that continue to compound, and then sometimes they're not great for us. This, my friends, is what's known as imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome, for me, I first experienced it at 22 years old. I go to my first conference as a graduate student. I show up, I go to registration, I get my name badge. They've got the first timers, so I already feel a little awkward. They also had this giant push pin board. Now on the push pin board, you could buy these great little stickers that said, because you believe, and they came with a little note card on them. So you could write to so-and-so from so-and-so. You stick it on the push pin board. Now, day one, I go to the board and I'm like, okay, again, I know that I'm a first-time attendee at this conference. I know that no one knows who I am, but I'm still expecting that something's on the board for me, but it's not. Then I go for day two and I'm like, okay. Still nothing on the board. Finally, by day three, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to forego coffee, which was a big deal. I'm going to forego coffee, buy the $5 sticker, and I'm going to just put to Dan from blank and just put it on the push pin board. And then I circled back a couple hours later. I was like, oh, look, someone wrote someone believed it's because you believe sticker. Like, oh my God, I got it. So I got it, put it on my name tag. And I finally felt like I belonged at this conference from a sticker on a name tag. And when we think about conferences, when we think about life in general, it's just creating a sense of belonging for us. But again, if all of those thoughts are negative and repetitive, well, then that's just a spiral that sometimes it makes us feel like we don't fit in. But because you can believe, and sometimes if you believe in others, that's great. But what happens when you buy a sticker for yourself? You actually start to believe in yourself and your capabilities and abilities just a little bit more. Now, this concept of imposter syndrome really kind of came to fruition. 1978, Clance and Imes studied this concept around professional women not feeling like they really fit in the workplace. They felt like they had to do more than double the amount of work in order to just feel this accepted. Now, fast forward a little bit later, the same researcher, Dr. Clance, 1985, coins the term the imposter phenomenon, which is what we know today as imposter syndrome. Now, this concept has been studied in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, 2000s, 2010s, all the way through today. And what we find is that it's not just professional women who feel this. It is those who, any identity, whatever gender, whatever race, whatever anything, name it, profession. We all feel these concepts. We all feel these feelings around imposter syndrome. In 2011, the Behavioral Science Research Institute found that 70% of adults at one point in their life feel like they have been an imposter. Now, I'm of the opinion that the other 30% just don't know that it's called imposter syndrome. But what if, go with me here, what if I told you that imposter syndrome is a myth? It doesn't exist. Imposter syndrome is a complete myth. Meaning, imposter syndrome is just a collection of feelings based off the perceived or reality that we have. Imposter syndrome doesn't actually exist because if it shows up so differently for all of us, that's literally how we were raised. I have 3 little brothers, and our imposter syndrome can show up completely differently just based off of how we were raised. And we were in the same household. Imposter syndrome is literally a myth, because if we can acknowledge that it is a collection of feelings that show up at random times, then we can understand how to hack those feelings. We can actually understand how to shape and curve those feelings of not feeling like enough. One of the things I want you to do real quick, go ahead and raise your hand as high as you can. If you're willing and able, go ahead, raise your hand as high as you can. Okay, but like as high as you can. Like some of you are pretending like you're still in college and the professor is like, and you're like, no, I'm good. Like as high as you can. I appreciate even up top. I appreciate you. Thank you. There we go. Thank you so much. Here we go. See, finally someone stood up. All of you were like, I didn't realize this was a stretching exercise. That's okay. But I said, raise your hand as high as you can. And how many of us stayed comfortable where we're at? All of our thoughts, all of these limits that we believe that we have are just self-imposed. These are self-imposed limits. I said, raise your hand as high as you can, and we stayed comfortable. It's only when we push ourselves to believe in different things that we actually start to reshape our world and how we show up for the world. That then brings in the question of, well, what do you believe? Do you believe the 80% of negative thoughts that continue to repeat? Let's actually explore the word believe real quick. Even in the word believe is the word lie. B-E-L-I-E-V-E. So what are those continuous lies that you end up believing? For me, one of those lies might be, I will wake up to the first alarm, which is why I set alarms 2, 3, and 4. The more dangerous beliefs or the lies that we might tell ourselves are, I'm fine. I'm not really good enough, but I'll settle. This is okay. And then we continue to just feed this negative beast inside of us that makes us feel like we don't belong somewhere. We don't belong in the job that we have. We don't belong in the relationship that we're in. We don't belong, period. And I'm here to shift that for you. I'm here to change that for you, because I truly believe that you can do this on your own. So here's a couple of examples that I want to try to give you that I want you to try to do on your own a little bit later. I want you to make a list of the things that you love. Literally make a list of the things that you love. Do it at home later on. Do it whenever, when you have some free time. So for me, I might put my children, because that feels important. And then I might put coffee, also important. Depending on the day, it might be coffee and then the children. Who knows? But I want you to make a list of things you love. Now, here's the catch. How long would it take before you finally put yourself on that list? Or better yet, how long would it take before you finally put yourself at the top of the list of things that you love? You see, we have to be able to show up for ourselves more. We have to be able to invest in ourselves. Just like I spent $5 on a sticker to believe, we need to invest in ourselves and believe that we are worthy of our own love and that we can show up because we belong there. One of the other activities that I like to do with different people is to create a thought tracker. All right, so as you can see, there's thoughts that we have. So you list your thought that you might have. Now, there's 4 different columns for this thought tracker. The first one being a fleeting thought. This might be a thought that just comes in and goes out of your mind very quickly. The second is a quicksand thought. These are those thoughts that continue to not only burrow in, but it make you feel like you're sinking. And usually for us to get out of quicksand, we need that friend, we need that person, we need someone who's going to believe in us and pull us out of that thought. We also have 2 other aspects of our thoughts, perceived and merit-based. Again, perceived thoughts are those where we believe that this is what the concept was, right? That's our perception of what has occurred, as opposed to a merit-based thought. So if I received an award and I'm like, I really don't deserve this award, that's a perception of, well, other people deserve it more than me. Whereas the merit-based is you're actually receiving said award. If we can visualize how we think about our thoughts and how we view our thoughts, you can actually learn to shape them and see where they're coming from. Over the course of the pandemic, as a professional public speaker with no actual public to go visit to and speak to, I went into a deep, dark spot. Now, thankfully, I had weekly therapy sessions, shout out therapy. But I went every single virtual session. I showed up and I felt defeated. Why? Because I'm one of those people that on my phone, I will list everything that I need to do rather than a to-do list, and then I just move my appointments to the next day. So I would go to bed feeling absolutely defeated, like I haven't done anything. I was busy but not productive. I would go to bed looking at, God, I just didn't do anything today. Then I'd wake up the next morning, look at everything I had to do, and realize, oh, I don't even want to adult at all. And that became this ongoing theme for a very long time. Now, what I encourage you to do is realize that we have more wins than we realize. So I started to set an alarm at 9 p.m. every day. At 9 p.m. every day, I would start to list my daily wins. Maybe it was I woke up at the first alarm. Maybe it was the second alarm. Maybe I caught up with friends. Maybe I wrote some curriculum. Whatever I might have done, I put that as a daily win. No matter how small, I put it as a daily win. Now, for a daily win, that's great, and that's my win. Because I would go to bed then feeling accomplished, ready to wake up the next morning to have more daily wins. How we view our own wins is how we can change and shift those patterns. And one of the other things I want to try to encourage you to do is to name your imposter syndrome. I want you to draw your imposter syndrome, name it, give it a personality. Now, for those that remember Pinocchio, Jiminy Cricket was kind of like that, the good voice of reason. He was there to help Pinocchio. They were friends at the end. Now, here's what I encourage you to do. I've actually named mine. I've drawn mine. I like to doodle. So I want to introduce you to my imposter syndrome. Everyone, I would love for you to meet Jimmy Cockroach. This is Jimmy Cock. Now, Jimmy's he's telling you that you're number one, but in his own special way. He's got his top hat on. He's got his white gloves on. He's a little rank. He's a little nasty. That's fine. And for some odd reason, Jimmy Cockroach sounds like a lifetime smoker from New Jersey. And he always shows up and he's like, Dan, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know how you're going to do it. I'm sorry for my New Jersey friends. And we have to realize that it sounds ridiculous. Jimmy Cockroach sounds ridiculous. And that's what imposter syndrome thoughts are. They're ridiculous. Now, I live in Los Angeles, and so one of the things that I often hear is like, well, just think positive. Don't think the negative thoughts. Boo-boo, that's not possible, okay? For example, don't think about an elephant. Great, that probably is what you just thought. So to tell someone to not have those thoughts is impossible and improbable. So what we have to be able to do is not only name it, but realize it. And when the thought happens, acknowledge it. It is there. Just like a cockroach is always going to be there, you don't have to let it have the driving wheel of your thoughts. So the more that we can believe that this is not the course of action, that imposter syndrome is not our actual thoughts, but our feelings can show up and we can address those, then you can start to believe in yourself. Because just like I invested in myself, I want you to be able to believe in you. Thank you.